day's a day, a bad luck's always a coming my way.
For today's grim adventure, we find ourselves in fair Verona, where today we're going to be telling the story of two star-crossed lovers that you may know as Romeo and Juliet. They say every story is based on some sort of truth. Well, when it comes to Romeo and Juliet, nobody's really sure if Romeo or Juliet were real people. But they do know that the Capulets and the Montagues were real families living here in Verona. Now, what we're going to try to do today is visit some of the locations that is believed to be the story of Romeo and Juliet, if the tale was real. We'd like you to join us. Now, before we go any further, I want to draw your attention to the wall that's behind me. If you look very closely at it, it is covered in messages that people have left when they came to Verona in search of Romeo and Juliet. The city frowns on it. They don't want you to write on the buildings, but people do it anyway. Now, the reason we're here is because at the end of the alleyway is where, well, Juliet's balcony is, where Juliet Capulet lived. It's our first stop. Now, this is really nice because usually whenever you come here to visit Juliet's house, the balcony and the statue, there are a ton of people. It's like a sea of people. But we are here at a perfect time, early in the morning. And it's right through this little tunnel, this little archway. Now, on both sides of us right now, there's a bunch of people who have written different things on the walls. We're going to show it in just a little bit. Just look how beautiful this is. So if I back up here, actually there's some steps. I'm going to get up here on the steps. So that's Juliet's balcony up there, then the statue. Jessica's walking over to the statue right now. The statue is beautiful. Now, this is cool. This is really nice. We were actually in the town of Verona yesterday, and there were so many people here that you couldn't even see the statue of Juliet. Man, that's nice. It's really nice, actually. This is really cool that Verona does this. Well, let's get a really good look at this courtyard. Again, there's the statue. So many people come up to get pictures. There's the balcony. Oh man, we love it here. And there's that little archway that we came in. Now here's the thing. Romeo and Juliet might not have been real, but the two feuding families, the Capulets and the Montagues, were real. And the Capulets, I think it's called Capuletti in Italian, did live in this house. And there's something here in this courtyard that you can see that shows that the family was here. Looking at the courtyard walls again, if we look at the arch right above the entrance, you can see the Capuletti family crest. Right there. That's pretty much the only thing that really remains that lets you know that they were actually here. Again, who knows if Romeo and Juliet were real? I mean, it had to have been based on something, right? Definitely the two families. Even though the story of Romeo and Juliet is fiction, there is a house here that's also a museum that has a bunch of different things in it, including props and costumes from movies. They are closed today. Thank goodness. There's a little store devoted to Romeo and Juliet. It's connected to the courtyard here, and you can actually go inside and buy little heart locks. At one point, there used to be a bunch of people out here, and they would write on the walls, and they frown upon that. So instead, you can come here and you can do this. So we bought a pink one. Go ahead and hold it up. I don't know if you can see it that well. It says Michael and Jessica, Grim Life 2025. And up in the top right-hand corner, every time I sign something, I always draw like a little vampire face. So now you got to find. Oh, we got a key. You got to unlock it, and you got to find a spot to put it. Right there. So we have the key. So if you come out here and you find it, and you're a fan of the channel, or if you're watching this, I'm gonna go ahead and point this down. We have the key, you're not getting it. Haha. This is nice. This is really nice. And we're not gonna touch the wall because it looks like people come here and they put bubble gum on it. And that is pretty gnarly, but wasn't there a movie called Letters to Juliet, if I'm not mistaken? And there's also a club, but here's the mailbox for it, where you can come and you can leave little notes in it. And I like this here. It's got a little makeshift balcony on it. Now let's have a closer look at this wall leading back to the balcony and the statue. People come here from all over the world and they write on the wall, and it's frowned upon. They don't want you to do that. Instead, you can come here, you can get pictures, you can buy a heart-shaped locket and you can put it on the wall, or like on a gate that's on the other side of the courtyard. And they also have a little mailbox up here on the left-hand side for Letters to Juliet. Before we leave the courtyard, we have to share a kiss before we move on. It seems just fitting, right? If I could have you up there on the balcony and I can climb up there to you and give you a kiss, I would in a heartbeat. But this will have to do. I love you.
I love you.
The next stop on our Romeo and Juliet tour brings us to Casa di Romeo, which is not open to the public like Juliet's house was. Actually, somebody lives here, so it's closed. But we can walk up to the gate. And that's this right over here. It's crazy cool that somebody still lives here. It's like the curse of buying a famous house. All the walls, including the gate, have words and names and hearts carved on them or drawn on them. You kind of just have to roll with it. Because, I mean, they frown upon it, but it's going to happen anyhow because people come from all over the world. And just like Juliet's house, there's a plaque here on the wall that has a quote from Shakespeare's play. That's pretty neat. Because Casa di Romeo is a private residence, there's really not much you can see here aside from taking a picture outside the gate. But that's okay, because right across from it is our next location. The next stop on our Romeo and Juliet tour brings us to these Gothic structures right here, known as the Scaligero tombs. Now, when it comes to the tale of Romeo and Juliet, you have to remember that it's both fiction and nonfiction. And what I mean by that, you never really know what is real and what is fake. A lot of history here in Verona. When it comes to Romeo and Juliet, it is believed that it is here at these tombs where Juliet actually stages her own death. Remember in the play whenever Juliet drinks the fake poison and Romeo wakes up and finds her? So he drinks the real poison, then she wakes up and finds him, so then she stabs herself with the knife. It all supposedly took place here in the tale of Romeo and Juliet. If we wanted to, we could really spend the entire day walking around Verona, tracking down sites that have to do with Romeo and Juliet. For this video, we're just kind of hitting some of the main ones. So we did Juliet's house, Romeo's house, the tomb where the staged death took place. And there's one more place that we need to go check out, and that is where the story tells us Juliet is buried, well, entombed. We are now making our way to Juliet's tomb. And in order to do this, we have to walk along the old city wall, which is important because in the tale of Romeo and Juliet, Juliet's final resting place is on the outskirts of town, basically on the other side of this wall. And it's massive. Let's ignore the fact that Romeo and Juliet were fictional characters. One thing we know for certain is that Juliet's grave was located not too far outside the city walls in an old monastery. There's only one monastery here, and it's like a couple blocks from the city walls, and it's right behind me. So you might be saying to yourself, wait a second, if Romeo and Juliet, the characters are fake, how can Juliet have an actual grave? Well, she doesn't. Once people figured out that this was the monastery closest to the city of Verona, outside the city walls, they came here in search of anything that might indicate that Juliet was a real person. And what they found was an old sarcophagus without a lid, and it was empty. And tales and legends and local this and that, it became known as the tomb of Juliet. Because Juliet's tomb is located inside of a museum, I'm not entirely sure if we're going to be showing everything. Ultimately, though, we're just here for the grave. But I love this courtyard. Our time here in Verona, baby, this is something else. Like, I really feel like I'm in the story of Romeo and Juliet. Oh, dry the dead leaves. Let me go ahead and back up so people can see what you're doing. If you don't know this about Jessica, she loves trampling through dead leaves. Just like Romeo and Juliet's house, there's a stone slab here with a line from the play. It's in Act 5, Scene 3. Eyes look your last, arms take your last embrace, and lips owe you a dateless bargain to engrossing death. Right? The man had a way with words. Then here's a bust of him. All right, let's go inside the museum in search of Juliet's tomb. So it looks like Juliet's tomb is right on the other side of the courtyard on the first floor. It's down these steps. Now, this isn't the original location of this. They actually found it and they kind of put it on display up here, and some years ago, a lot of people kept coming out here and chiseling off pieces of it. So they saved it and they put it down here. Oh, there it is. Here. Get the camera through here, so let it focus a little bit. When you come to Verona, this is Juliet's tomb. Look at that, the crypt. Again, there was no body. I mean, Juliet and Romeo, or Romeo and Juliet, they were fictional characters. There's no real proof that they ever existed. But when they found this, there was no markings on it, there was no name, there was no lid, and it was empty. So local legend, it became Juliet's tomb. Looks like we can go down the steps a little bit more. So you can basically walk right up to it. Every picture I've ever seen was up that way. I mean, I guess it's like a head-on shot, but standing here, you can look directly at it. I mean, I can reach out and place the camera inside her tomb if I wanted to. I'm not going to. This is pretty wild. Even though Romeo and Juliet were not real people, I mean, we all grew up on the story of Romeo and Juliet. We know all about it. And then to be able to see this. Crazy, right? It's so quiet. Again, this monastery was standing around the time that Romeo and Juliet was written, outside the city walls, the only one, and it makes sense. Over the years, it fell into disrepair, and they fixed it up, and now it's a museum that you can come and visit. There's Jessica over there walking over to Juliet's grave, or her tomb. Can you imagine? I mean, at one point this place was abandoned and just anybody can come in here. But now it's saved. What's surprising to me is that we're the only people here. Everybody's down on the streets of Verona, where Juliet's house is, where Romeo's house is. And I bet they're all down there because of all the shopping. This is a little hike to get here. Off the beaten path, if you will, and so worth it. It's cool, right, baby? Right, this is like history. I mean, yeah, I know that she wasn't real and that this is a fake, coffin or sarcophagus. But Romeo and Juliet, we all know the story. And to think that this is where her final resting place was. So many kisses. I love you. Let's go ahead and explore the monastery a little bit. Oh. I don't think this is relatively recent. Engraving on the works of the citadel. You can see on the wall here, there's all kinds of different carvings and people have written different things. I don't think they can do that anymore, but back whenever this place was in ruin, they probably did. Emerging from the darkness. It's crazy that these walls are covered like this. Very similar to what you would see down in in the heart of Verona. Now look at this over here. Oh, wow. Almost sitting directly above Juliet's tomb. are these engravings that pretty much tell the story of Romeo and Juliet. Pointing out a few of the key scenes. Here's Romeo climbing up to the balcony. And with that being said, thank you for joining us on another grim adventure, this time to fair Verona, telling the tale of two star-crossed lovers, Romeo and Juliet. Until next time, happy Halloween.
Wherever I come, bad luck just comes my way. Wherever I go, hard luck is there to stay. Good luck never stays a day. Bad luck's always coming my way.